All right, let's start another lab exercise, that is VPN virtual private network using NAT gateway. NAT stands for Network Address Translator. So here we are going to perform a couple of steps. We'll be creating a VPC with a CIDR block at 10.0.0.0/16 CIDR. We'll be creating two subnets, one for private, one for public. We will be creating the replica of a Bastion host lab exercise, what we did. But the only difference is we will be creating each and every component manually. All right. Let me take you back to AWS Management Console. So in my EC2 dashboard, I selected, I'll be selecting a VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. We'll be creating a virtual private cloud with NAT gateway. Remember, in the previous lab, we used Internet Gateway. Of course, here also we are using Internet Gateway, since we'll be creating two components each, two virtual machines, two Internet gateways, everything, two numbers will be selecting, but we'll be creating under one single virtual private cloud. Okay, to begin with, let us create a virtual private cloud. Now we can see there is only one default VPC is available. I'm creating this VPC under North California region. So to begin with, click on Create VPC. I'll select the option VPC only. I'll have to give a name. I will call it VPC NAT, Network Address Translator. All right. So the IP address range, this time I will give a different IP address range, 10.0.0.0/16 is the CIDR, what I provided. Okay, this is the default tenancy. What is tenancy? We were discussing earlier, right? A tenancy defines how your EC2 instances are created in a particular virtual or physical server, whether you want a complete dedicated server for yourself or you want to have a sharing facility. So I'm selecting the sharing facility itself, the default storage, that is EC2 what we are selecting, the tenancy. It is default. Click on Create VPC. It is that simple. A VPC has been created now. If you click on your VPCs, you will see a new VPC that has been created. This is the default one. The above one is what I provided, VPC NAT. Okay, so next we need to create subnets. The first option is over. VPC is done. We need to create subnets, correct? So please select subnet. And we will be creating two subnets here. So to begin with, click on Create Subnet. You need to select the VPC under which particular virtual private cloud you want to create. So I'm selecting my virtual private cloud, customize the virtual private cloud what I created. The CIDR block is 10.0.0.0/16. This is a network IP address for this VPC. I'm creating the first subnet. Remember, we will be creating all two numbers will be creating. Okay, the first subnet, I will call it as public subnet. All right, you can give the same naming convention. Select the availability zone of your choice. Okay, I'll go with US West 1A. And you need to provide the IP address for this subnet. Okay, I will give 10.0.0.0/24 CIDR. Please provide the same IP address so that all of us will be on the same page. Okay, the subnet name is public subnet. And the IP address, what we have provided is 10.0.0.0/24. All right. And click on create subnet. Of course, we can create one more subnet here itself. Let us not get confused. Let us come back once again. We'll create one more subnet. Click on create subnet. So the subnet has been created. We can see I gave the name public subnet with the network IP address range as 10.0.0.0/24. Let us create one more subnet. Select the same VPC. This time I will call it private subnet. So two subnets we are creating. One is private, one is public. Availability zones, I will go with the same availability zone, US West 1A. And the IP address I'll have to provide. Please be careful. Here, the IP address will be different. 10.0.1.0/24. There is slight difference, a slight change in the IP address, what I provided. So we have created two IP addresses. One is private, one is public. You can see two subnets that are created. Both are having different IP address range. So here we have created VPC and the subnet. Next option is to create a route table. We'll come back to this route table after creating the internet gateway. All right. So please click on internet gateway. So what is an internet gateway? It is a network device that gives access. It acts like an access point to another network. So we were giving example of our home-based router, right? Broadband router. So the broadband router is a hardware device. Here we are using this internet gateway. It is a software device. So click on internet gateway. Create the internet gateway. I will give VPC NAT IG. IG stands for internet gateway. Create an internet gateway. It is that simple. And attach this internet gateway to the VPC, what we have created. Okay, all of you on the same page. Now let us come back to our route table. Okay, we need to create a route table. Here also, we will create two route tables. Click on create a route table. Just like the subnet, what we created, a private subnet, public subnet, let us create a private route and a public route. First, I will create public route. Select the VPC, the custom VPC, what we have created. Select that, click on create a route table. One route table is created. We'll create, now we can see public route is created. We will create one more, this time private route. Select the VPC. Once again, select the same custom VPC what we have created earlier. Click on create. Okay. So if we come back to our route tables dashboard, you will see a public route and a private route. So what is that we did in the last exercise, in the last previous lab exercise? We attached this route to the subnet, right? We associated with the subnet association as well as the routes policies we have provided, correct? So we will do the same thing. So first select the public route. Please do not touch private, leave that private route part. We are not going to do anything with that at this point of time. So please select the public route. Click on subnet association and further click on edit subnet association. Here, which subnet we need to select? Can someone give me? Let me know. We have two subnets. Public. Correct. So select the public subnet, click on save association. So please remember, we are not touching upon the private route as of now. So once again, select the public route, click on routes, click on edit routes, add another route, just like what we did last time, 0.0.0.0/0. Target will be internet gateway. Select the internet gateway, click on save changes. Okay, that's it. So with this, we have created a VPC, created two subnets, two route tables, internet gateway. The only thing is a private subnet route table, which we did not touch. Correct? All right. Now let us come back to our EC2 dashboard, and we need to create two virtual machines. Okay. Please come back to EC2 dashboard.
One second, my internet gateway is detached.
Okay, we are going to create two virtual machines. To begin with, let us create a virtual machine in a private subnet. Click on launch instance. I will call this as a private VM. Selecting Windows operating system. Let us create a key pair. Key pair has been created and downloaded. Under network settings, this is very important. Please click on edit under network settings. Select the VPC, which is the VPC? The VPC what we have created, VPC NAT. Select that. Subnet, this is another very important step. Since this is a private virtual machine, what we are selecting, now we can see there are two subnets are available because we have created two subnets, private and a public. We will go with the private subnet. Okay, and another important step, auto assign public IP address. We don't want to enable it. We don't want to give a public facing IP address. We don't want anyone to log into this virtual machine through internet. Got it? So the auto assign public IP will be disabled. Subnet will be private subnet, and the VPC will be our custom based VPC, what we have created, VPC NAT. All other settings are fine. Go ahead, click on launch instance. Now we have one virtual machine which is pending. Another one is terminated. We need not to worry about that. Let us filter it out. Instance state is equal to running. Okay, now one private virtual machine is up and running. Since this virtual machine is not having a public IP address, we all know that we cannot log into this virtual machine. We cannot do the RDP from our remote laptop or desktop. So how to log into this virtual machine? We need to have another virtual machine that is having the same address pool in the same address range. We should have another virtual machine. That means we should have another virtual machine in the same availability zone created. Through that virtual machine, we can log in. So we are going to create one more virtual machine. That virtual machine, we will call it as public VM. So let us launch instance. Here itself on the orange button, you can click on, you can launch another instance. I'll provide the name as public VM. Selecting Windows operating system. Key pair, I'll create another key pair. And the most important option to select is network settings. Click on edit. Once again, we are going to select the VPC, the new VPC, custom-based VPC, what we have selected, what we have created, VPC NAT. Subnet, this time instead of private, we will select public subnet, not the private. And auto assign public IP address, by default it is disabled. This time we will enable that option. Create security group. If you want, you can provide a new security group, or you can go with the existing one. Only we need RDP connection. That's it. We don't need any other security group rules to be added or enabled. With that, just go ahead, click on launch instance. So click on view all instances. You will see both the virtual machines. Let us filter it out. So I just want to see only two virtual machines what I created. So we have a private VM, which is already up and running. Unfortunately, we cannot log into this virtual machine because deliberately we have disabled the public IP address. So now we are waiting for the public virtual machine to come up. So that we can log into this virtual machine. In the meantime, let me open my notepad and capture all the required details. So I will go with the private VM, the private VM IP address. This is the private IP. And we need the password, right, to log in. So click on connect, select RDP client, get password. Upload the private key. Here we have the private key. Decrypt the password. I got the password. I will capture this password as well. Similarly, I will keep the information handy for my public VM. Let me download the, this is not required because anyway, we cannot log in from here. So public VM, I will go, let me see, is it initial? It is up and running, no, not it. Public VM. I have the public IP address. And I have the private IP address as well. And what is the password? Password we need to extract. The public VM is also up and running. Click on connect. Go to RDP. Get password. So I have the public VM's password as well. Got it? Now I want to show you one thing here, the private IP address, I will copy it. I will save it here. Similarly, the private IP address of my public virtual machine, you can see the first two octets of both the virtual machines are 10.0, 10.0. This is most important. This is how we'll be able to analyze that both these virtual machines are in the same network. Got it? That is how from public VM, we can do RDP to the private VM virtual machine. Got it? So that is what we are going to do now. So what we will do, we will, we need to log into this public VM. I have already downloaded my public VM RDP file. I'm logging into this public VM. So I'm logging into this public VM with the public VM's password. Now we can see I'm able to log into the public virtual machine. Once it is logged in, let us check for internet access. Now we have logged into public VM. We have launched the server manager and disabling this internet security configuration. This is set to on. We will set it to off. This particular setting, the step is not mandatory. We are just doing this so that when we access the internet, we will not be keep getting the pop-up message. So I'm launching Internet Explorer. So internet is working fine. Now, from this public VM, let us try to log in to private VM. Okay, I will close all the tabs. I'll create a desktop folder just to recognize in which particular virtual machine we are working and connected. I'll call this public VM. Now I'm launching mstsc command, remote desktop connection tool, to get connect to our private virtual machine. Okay. Remember, we all had we have made a note of the private VM IP address. So the private VM IP I'm copying, logging into that. You need to provide the username and password. The username will be default administrator. And the password, we have decrypted the password. You remember? I have it on my notepad. So I'm logging in now. So with this, we are able to log into the private VM, the private virtual machine. Now we can see side by side, both the virtual machines are there. Right now I'm logging into the private virtual machine. Now I'm able to log into private virtual machine as well. You can see side by side, both the virtual machines are there. Let me create a folder here just to recognize where I am. I'll call it private VM. So if I minimize this private VM, I will be able to see the public VM, correct? Let me keep both of them side by side. So on the private VM, let me try to access internet. I'm able to log into the private VM. Inside private VM, I should be able to get the internet, correct? Let me disable the internet security feature. So we have both the VMs side by side, public VM and the private VM. The private VM is onto the right side, where we are trying to check for internet connection. You can see here on the private VM, there is no internet connection. Do you say that? It says page cannot be displayed. However, onto the public VM, you should be able to see the internet connection up and running. Okay, so this is what actually we want to achieve. But same time, we want internet access in the private network also. Okay, in the public VM, it is having direct internet connection, correct? In the private VM, the internet connection has been deliberately removed, or we have not even attached it. Now we are going to attach the internet connection of public VM here to the private VM. So the internet connection works through the private, through the public network only, the public virtual machine only. So the private VM, what we have onto the right hand side, it will never ever have direct internet access. The internet access has to pass through the public VM only. Thereby our connection will be secured. So how to achieve that? Let us minimize these virtual machines. come back to our VPC. Okay, so here we have provided internet gateway, right? This is the internet gateway what we have created, and this internet gateway we have attached to the public subnet, correct? So if you go to subnet, you have public subnet. If you see the route table, you have this internet gateway attached. So that is how you're able to get the internet. Now, my question is, what if I attach the same internet gateway to my private subnet also? Will I be able to get the internet connection? Can someone tell me?
You should be, sir.
Yes, 100%. We will be able to get, but our intention is not that. We don't want the internet connection to pass through directly to the internet. We don't want the direct internet access. So we don't want to use the internet gateway to get the internet connection. So what is the next option? What is the secured way of getting the internet connection to this private subnet? For that, we have one more option called NAT gateway. Please select this NAT gateway. Okay, click on create NAT gateway. Provide the name. I will call it VPC NAT. GW stands for gateway, private VPC NAT gateway. Okay, select the subnet where you want the access to pass through. It has to go through our public, right? So through the public subnet, the internet will be provided. Okay, we have the connectivity type will be public. All of you. And create a static IP address. As of now, there are no static IP address. Click on allocate static IP address. And create a NAT gateway. Now the NAT gateway has been created. NAT stands for Network Address Translator. We need to attach this NAT gateway to our routing table. Remember, in the routing table, we did not touch the private route deliberately last time. You remember? Yes, the same thing. Okay, so select that private route. Click on routes. Okay, click on edit routes. We are going to add one more routing table, 0.0.0.0.0/0. Target. Are we going to select internet gateway? No, we are going to select network gateway. You see that this time we got the network address translator, network gateway, what we have created. Click on save changes. Okay. Now, since we attached this network gateway, the internet access will go through the public subnet through this internet connection. You can come back to your virtual machine and try to open the web page once again. So now you can see the internet working on both the public as well as the private virtual machines.
Sir, could you please repeat the previous step?
Yes, I will. So this is about the private VM, the internet which is running. So once we created NAT gateways, we need to attach the route tables as well as the subnet association. So when we created the subnet private as well as the public, private subnet we did not touch. So you can select private subnet, click on route tables. This is one way. Other way is straight away you can go to the route tables. In route table, you select private route. There we have subnet association. Select the subnet association. Click on edit subnet association. So the private subnet, we'll be selecting the private subnet only. Okay, the private subnet has been already selected here. In my case, you will have to select that. Click on save association. Okay, so once that is done, once again select private route. This time, this we already did, subnet association. Come back to routes. Under routes, click on edit routes. This is what we have added. Let me remove that and add it once again. Click on add routes. Select 0.0.0.0/0. Under targets, this time, since this is a private virtual machine, private subnet, we are not selecting the internet gateway. The purpose will not be served. So we are selecting NAT gateway. So you can see this is the NAT gateway that we created that has been selected. Click on save changes. So that what happens going forward, the private virtual machine will be able to get the internet access through the NAT gateway. This NAT gateway is connected to the public virtual machine. Okay, so the public NAT virtual machine is providing the internet access to the NAT gateway, and NAT gateway is providing internet access to the private virtual machine. So if you go back to our virtual machines, what we have created. So we have both the virtual machines kept side by side. We'll be able to see the internet working in both the virtual machines, both public as well as private. So in this lab exercise, we have created a VPN connectivity. There is a separate bridge that has been created between the private VM and the public VM. All the internet traffic is passing through the public VM. There is a NAT gateway that has been created. This is how typically a Bastion host works. So between these two virtual machines, the Bastion host is the public VM. So the private VM will not have any internet access. No third party can access this private VM from internet. If at all you need to access this private VM, you have to access only through the public virtual machine through MSTSC or taking a remote desktop connection. Even we have blocked the internet access also in the private VM. The internet access also has to pass through the prior public virtual machine only. So if we stop the internet access in public VM, automatically the private VM also will not have internet access. Same time, if we delete the NAT gateway that we have created, the internet access will be removed. So with this, we have reached at the end of creating VPN with NAT gateway lab exercise. Let us move on to the next topic.